I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this has traveled. I came to Sunday dinner at my son's house, but he opened the door and said, "Mom, these dinners are for family only now. You're not invited." I stood there holding the apple pie I'd baked that morning, his favorite since he was 5 years old, and felt my world crack apart. What I didn't know yet was that over 5 years I'd given them $237,000, and they were about to learn that walking away from me was the biggest mistake of their lives. The November wind cut through my coat as I stood on Riley's doorstep, my hands trembling around the warm pie dish. Not from the cold, from something I couldn't quite name yet. Something that felt like the ground shifting beneath my feet. Through the frosted glass door, I could see movement, hear laughter, the clink of wine glasses and the warm murmur of conversation that meant Sunday dinner was already underway. Our Sunday dinner, the tradition I'd driven 45 minutes from my apartment in the city to keep every single week for the past 2 years. I'd baked Riley's favorite apple pie that morning. The recipe my mother taught me, the one with the lattice crust that took an extra hour but was worth it when you saw someone's face light up. I'd gotten up at 6 a.m. to make it because Riley once mentioned years ago that the smell of this pie reminded him of his father. Robert had been gone for 17 years now, heart attack at 47, leaving me with a 15-year-old son and a mountain of grief I thought would never end. But I'd survived. More than survived, I'd built a life. I'd raised Riley alone, working double shifts as a nurse at St. Mary's Hospital. I'd put him through business school. I'd walked him down the aisle when he married Madison 3 years ago. I'd helped them buy their first house, this beautiful colonial in the suburbs, with the wraparound porch and the chandelier in the dining room. The chandelier I could see glittering now through the window. I rang the doorbell. The laughter inside paused. Footsteps approached. The door opened, and my son stood there in a crisp button-down shirt I didn't recognize. Probably expensive. Everything Madison bought for him was expensive. "Mom," his face changed the instant he saw me. The smile vanished like someone had flipped a switch. "What are you doing here?" The question hit me like a slap. "It's Sunday." I managed my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. "Our dinner. I brought pie." I held it up like an offering, like proof that I belonged here. Riley didn't move from the doorway. Behind him, I could see the dining room table set with the good china, the set I'd bought them for their first anniversary. Candles flickered. The table was full. I recognized Madison's parents, Michael and Catherine Parker, dressed like they were attending a country club event rather than a family dinner. People I'd never met sat in the other chairs. Madison's colleagues, maybe. Her law firm friends with their perfect hair and their knowing smiles. "Riley," I said, "can I come in?" That's when Madison appeared. She moved like a shark through water, smooth and purposeful, her hand settling possessively on Riley's shoulder. She wore a burgundy dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her blonde hair was styled in loose waves, and her makeup was flawless. She looked at me the way you'd look at a door-to-door salesman. "Ava," she said. "Not Mom. Never Mom. Riley didn't tell you." "Tell me what?" My heart was hammering now. Something was very wrong. I could feel it in the air, in the way Riley wouldn't meet my eyes and the brittle smile on Madison's face. "These dinners," Madison continued, her voice smooth and final as a judge's gavel. "We're keeping them intimate now, just immediate family. My parents are here, and we're trying to maintain appropriate boundaries." Boundaries. The word felt like ice water down my spine. "I'm Riley's mother," I said. My hands were shaking so badly now that the pie dish rattled slightly. "I am his family." "Of course you are." Madison's smile didn't reach her eyes. "But we've been meaning to talk to you about this, about giving us space, about not inserting yourself into every aspect of our lives." Inserting myself. Sunday dinners had been my idea, yes. 2 years ago, when Riley and Madison first moved into this house, the house I'd helped them buy with a $40,000 down payment, I'd suggested we start a tradition. Family dinners, like the ones Robert and I used to have when Riley was young. Riley had loved the idea, or so I thought. "Daniel," Madison said, her voice sharper now. "Tell her, my son, my baby boy, who I'd rocked through nightmares, who I'd taught to ride a bike, who I'd sacrificed everything for, finally looked at me. His eyes were guilty, ashamed, but not ashamed enough to do the right thing. 'Mom,' he whispered, 'these dinners, they're for family only now. Madison's parents are here, and we're trying to keep it intimate. You understand, right? Family only. I stared at him, at this stranger wearing my son's face, at the man I'd raised alone, the man I'd given up vacations and new clothes and sometimes proper meals to support, the man I'd worked myself to exhaustion for taking every extra shift, every holiday, every overtime hour I could get. Riley, I said quietly, I'm your mother. I am your family. Margaret, we've been meaning to talk to you. Madison's voice cut through the November air like a knife. About boundaries. You're not invited tonight. It would be better if you left. The world tilted. I looked at my son's face one more time, waiting for him to defend me. Waiting for him to tell his wife she was wrong, that his mother was always welcome. That family meant something more than blood and legal documents. He said nothing. I'm sorry, Mom, Riley finally whispered. But yes, please go. I don't remember walking back to my car. I don't remember setting the pie on the passenger seat or starting the engine. I only remember sitting in my dark apartment 3 hours later, still holding my purse, still wearing my coat, staring at that damned apple pie on my kitchen counter. The pie with the lattice crust that took an extra hour. The pie that smelled like Robert. The pie that was supposed to remind my son that he was loved. I sat there until dawn, watching the sky turn from black to gray to the pale pink of morning. And somewhere in those dark hours, something inside me changed. The hurt began to crystallize into something harder, something clearer, something that felt a lot like rage. I didn't sleep, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Riley's face, heard Madison's voice. Family only. At 6 a.m., I made coffee with shaking hands. The apartment felt too quiet, too empty. For 32 years, it had just been Riley and me. Now it was just me. I sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. The screen's blue light made my eyes ache, but I needed to see, needed to know. I'd been helping them financially for 5 years. It started small, a few hundred here and there when they were saving for their down payment. Then it became regular. Monthly mortgage help, car payments, the kitchen renovation Madison insisted they needed. Riley's startup venture that failed within 6 months. I'd never said no. They were my only family. I wanted to be useful, to be needed. But sitting there in the dawn light with the taste of humiliation still bitter in my mouth, I pulled up my bank statements and started adding. The numbers made me physically sick. Mortgage payments, $1.05 a month. I scrolled back through the records. 62 months. My hands froze on the keyboard. $93,000 just for the mortgage. And that was only the beginning. I opened a spreadsheet, the same software I used to use at the hospital for patient records, and started listing everything. Every wire transfer, every check, every emergency that required my retirement savings. The car Madison had insisted they needed. $45,000. The kitchen renovation with the marble countertops and the professional-grade appliances. $12,000. Riley's startup. The one Madison convinced him to try, the tech company that was going to change everything. $15,000 gone in 6 months. The furniture, the emergency loans. Madison's birthday gifts, jewelry, spa days, that weekend trip to Napa Valley. The vacation to Turks and Caicos I'd funded last summer because they needed to decompress. By noon, I had the complete picture. $237,000. I stared at the number until it blurred. $237,000. Nearly $250,000. My retirement savings cut in half. My emergency fund depleted. The small inheritance from my mother, the woman who'd raised me in a 2-bedroom apartment and taught me to make apple pie from scratch, gone entirely. For what? To be told I wasn't family, I got up and walked to the bathroom. My reflection in the mirror looked older than my 67 years. Gray hair I kept meaning to dye. Lines around my eyes from 30 years of night shifts. Hands permanently dry from constant hand washing and sanitizer. I'd spent my entire life taking care of other people. First my patients, then Riley. I'd been a good nurse, a good mother. I'd been accommodating, understanding, never making waves. And this was what it got me. My phone rang. Riley's name lit up the screen. I stared at it. Let it ring, and ring, and ring. Let him wonder. Let him worry. Let him feel a fraction of the anxiety I'd felt standing on his doorstep like an unwanted stranger. The voicemail notification popped up. I didn't listen to it. My phone rang again an hour later. Again I didn't answer. By evening I'd made my decision. I logged into my bank's website, found the automatic payments section, the mortgage payment I sent to Riley's account every month like clockwork. $1.500 scheduled to go out in 3 days. I clicked cancel. The car payment. Cancel. Every single recurring transfer to Riley's account. Cancel, cancel, cancel. With each click, I felt lighter. Like I was shedding weight I'd been carrying so long I'd forgotten it wasn't mine. But that wasn't enough. That was just stopping the bleeding. I needed documentation. Proof. I spent the next 6 hours creating a detailed record. Dates, amounts, purposes. Some I remembered clearly, the $5,000 for their 3rd anniversary trip to Paris. Others I'd almost forgotten, the $2,000 for Madison's professional certification course, the one that helped her make partner track at her firm. Around midnight, I called Susan. Susan Brennan had been my friend since nursing school 45 years ago. We'd worked together at St. Mary's until she retired 2 years before me. She'd gone through her own difficult situation with her daughter, caught her stealing from Susan's bank account to fund a gambling habit. She answered on the second ring, her voice alert despite the hour. "Ava, what's wrong?" I told her everything. The dinner, the rejection, the money. Susan listened without interrupting. When I finished, her silence spoke volumes. $237,000, she finally said. "Ava, that's elder financial abuse." The words hit me like a bucket of ice water. "It's not abuse," I said automatically. "I gave it willingly." "Did you, or did they manipulate you into it?" Susan's voice was firm, the same tone she used to use with difficult patients. Those comments Madison made about Riley being stressed about supporting everyone, that's guilt-tripping. Classic manipulation. I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it. Because she was right. I'd given the money willingly. But had I given it freely, or had I been carefully, systematically manipulated into becoming their personal ATM? "You need to talk to a lawyer," Susan said. "I don't want to sue my son." But even as the words left my mouth, I wondered why not. What loyalty did I owe someone who'd thrown me away like garbage? "Then talk to a financial advisor at least," Susan said. "See what your options are, and Ava, stop giving them money immediately." "I already have." Hearing myself say it out loud made it real, made it permanent. We talked for another hour. Susan gave me names. Her lawyer, Patricia Chen. Her financial advisor, Thomas Brennan. Even a therapist who specialized in family estrangement. I wrote everything down, my hand cramping but steady. When we finally hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Since before Robert died, maybe. A sense of purpose. Riley called again Monday morning. And Tuesday morning. I didn't answer. Let him taste a fraction of the silence I'd endured when he stopped calling me back. When Madison started answering his phone with that clipped, efficient voice. "He's busy, Ava. I'll tell him you called." He never called back then. Now he could see how it felt. I had appointments to make, plans to execute, and for the first time since Robert died, I was going to put myself first. My son had taught me an important lesson on that doorstep. Family isn't about blood. It's about respect, love, and loyalty. And if he could withdraw those things from me, then I could certainly withdraw my financial support from him. Fair was fair. Monday morning, I sat in Patricia Chen's office on the 32nd floor of a downtown high-rise. The view overlooked the city, my city where I'd worked and lived and raised my son. From up here, it looked clean and organized. Not messy and painful like it felt from ground level. Patricia was probably in her mid-50s with sharp eyes that missed nothing and a tailored suit that spoke of success. Susan had warned me, she's expensive but she's worth it, and she doesn't suffer fools. $237,000 over 5 years, Patricia said, reviewing my spreadsheet. Her manicured nail traced down the columns. "And you have documentation for all of this." I slid the folder across her glass desk. Bank statements, canceled checks, wire transfer confirmations. I kept everything. Robert had taught me that. Keep records. Always keep records. He'd been an accountant before the heart attack took him. Organized to a fault. I used to tease him about his filing system. Now I was grateful for the habit he'd instilled in me. Patricia spent 20 minutes reviewing my documents in silence. The only sound was the whisper of pages turning and the distant hum of traffic below. Finally, she looked up. "Ava, I need to ask you something important. Did you sign anything? Any loan agreements? Any documents stating these were gifts?" "Nothing. It was just helping family." "That works in your favor." Patricia leaned back in her leather chair. "Here's the situation. Legally, without written agreements stating these were gifts, there's an argument that these were loans. Implied loans. You could potentially sue for repayment. My stomach tightened. I don't know if I want to go that far. I understand, but you should know your options. Patricia pulled out a legal pad. There's also the question of undue influence. You mentioned your daughter-in-law's comments, the guilt tripping, the social isolation cutting off your weekly dinners. These are red flags for financial exploitation. Financial exploitation. Elder abuse. The terms made me feel small, stupid, like I should have seen this coming. What would you recommend? First, I'm going to draft a formal demand letter. It will outline the money you've provided and request a repayment plan. It's official, it's documented, and it puts them on notice that you're not backing down. Patricia's expression softened slightly. Sometimes that's enough to wake people up. Sometimes they realize what they're about to lose, and they change course. I thought about Riley's face on that doorstep, the way he'd let Madison speak for him, the way he'd stood there and nodded when she told me to leave. And if it's not enough, then we file a lawsuit. We pursue repayment through the courts. It will be public record. It will be uncomfortable, but you'll have legal standing to reclaim what's yours. I signed the retainer agreement with shaking hands, wrote a check for $3,500, watched my already depleted savings drop further. But it was worth it. For the first time since that horrible Sunday, I felt like I was taking control. The letter went out Wednesday by certified mail signature required. I imagined Madison's face when she opened it, saw the official letterhead, read the itemized list of every dollar, every wire transfer, every check. Good. Let her feel a fraction of the shock I'd felt. Thursday morning, my phone exploded. 7 missed calls from Riley before 9 a.m., 4 voicemails, each more desperate than the last. Mom, we need to talk. Mom, what's going on? Mom, Madison showed me some crazy letter from a lawyer. This is insane. Call me back, please. I was having coffee with Susan when he called again. She watched as I declined the call, then raised her cup in a small toast. Proud of you, she said. They're panicking. Good. They should be. That afternoon, Madison called from Riley's phone, a tactic I recognized immediately. She'd done this before when she wanted something used Riley's contact, so I'd answer. I let it go to voicemail. Ava, this is Madison. Her voice was controlled, but I could hear the tension underneath like a wire pulled too tight. I don't know what you think you're doing, but this letter is completely inappropriate. We're family. We don't handle disagreements with lawyers. Call me back immediately so we can discuss this, like adults. Like adults. I almost laughed. Adults don't abandon their mothers on doorsteps. Adults don't take $250,000 and then act like the victim when asked to pay it back. Friday, I met with Thomas Brennan, the financial advisor Susan recommended. His office was smaller than Patricia's, cozier, with photos of his own family on the desk. 3 kids, all grown. A wife with kind eyes. A reminder of what healthy family relationships looked like. You've been supporting them for 5 years, Thomas said, reviewing my financial history on his computer screen. The good news is you still have enough to live on. The bad news is your retirement is severely compromised. Can I recover? Financially, if they repay even half of what you're owed, you'll be in decent shape. You'll need to be careful, but you won't be destitute. He gave me a kind smile. Emotionally, that's above my pay grade. Thomas created a new financial plan for me, one that assumed no further support to Riley and Madison, one that ideally included some repayment. He also helped me open a new checking account at a different bank, transfer my remaining funds there, change all my passwords, remove Riley as my emergency contact. Just in case, Thomas said. People get desperate when money's involved. Better safe than sorry. I hadn't considered that Riley might try to access my account somehow, but Thomas was right to be cautious. I left his office with a folder full of documents and a strange sense of empowerment. For the first time in 5 years, my money was mine. My choices were mine. I wasn't just Riley's mother, the ATM he could count on whenever Madison wanted something new. I was Ava Morrison, retired nurse, widow, survivor, and I was done being used. Saturday afternoon, a car pulled up outside my apartment building. I was making tea when I heard it, the familiar sound of Riley's Audi, the one I'd helped him buy with a $45,000 loan 2 years ago. I went to the window and watched him get out. Alone. No Madison. He looked terrible. thinner than I remembered with dark circles under his eyes. He ran his hand through his hair, a nervous gesture he'd had since childhood, since the first day of kindergarten when I'd walked him to the classroom and he'd cried and begged me not to leave. I'd stayed an extra hour that day sitting in the hallway outside his classroom just so he'd know I was there. Now I watched him walk to the entrance of my building and I felt nothing. No urge to rush down and hug him. No maternal instinct to fix whatever was bothering him. Just a cold, clear detachment. My intercom buzzed. "Mom, it's me. Please, we need to talk." I stared at the intercom button. Part of me, the part that had raised him, that remembered him as a little boy bringing me dandelions from the yard that had rocked him through nightmares about losing his father, wanted to let him up. But I thought about that doorstep, about Madison's cold voice, about family only. I pressed the button. "Put everything in writing," I said, my voice steady. "Have your wife review it since she seems to make your decisions now. Give me a formal repayment plan through my attorney. Then we'll talk." "Mom, please." I released the button, cutting him off. Through the window, I watched him stand there for 10 minutes. He looked up at my windows, pulled out his phone, put it away, looked lost. Finally, he got back in his car and drove away. I waited for the guilt to come. The maternal instinct to call him back to fix this, to make it okay. It didn't come. Instead, I felt lighter. That night I found something while organizing my evidence folder. An old email from Madison sent 2 years ago, right after they'd moved into the house. "Ava, your generosity is so appreciated. We couldn't manage without your support. You're the best mother-in-law anyone could ask for. Riley and I are so grateful to have you in our lives." I printed it out, added it to my file. Actions, after all, spoke louder than words. And Madison's actions, banning me from family dinners, calling me an intrusion, manipulating my son into choosing her over me, those actions told the real story. The following Tuesday, Patricia called. "They responded," she said. Or rather, their attorney responded. My coffee went cold in my hand. "They hired a lawyer. Madison did. Very quickly, I might add." Patricia's tone was dry. "She's a corporate lawyer herself, so she has connections. His name is Marcus Webb, big firm downtown." What did he say? They're claiming everything was a gift, freely given with no expectation of repayment. That's not true. I know, which is why I asked them to provide that in writing signed by their attorney. Because if they formally claim that position, and we can prove otherwise, it becomes fraud. Patricia paused. "They haven't responded to that request yet." What does that mean? It means they're scared. They're trying to figure out which lie will cost them less. I spent the next week organizing everything else. I went to my bank and requested a complete transaction history, every transfer to Riley's accounts over the past 5 years. The banker, a young woman named Maria, looked at the amounts and raised her eyebrows but didn't comment. I collected old text messages. "Found conversations from years ago, Riley. Mom, can you help with the down payment on the car? I'll pay you back as soon as my bonus comes through." My response? "Of course, honey. Whatever you need." His bonus never came. Or if it did, it went to something else. The payment never came back to me. Another message from 3 years ago. "Riley, emergency car repair. $2,000. Just a loan until next month." Next month never came either. I even found a voicemail from 3 years ago. Riley's voice, younger, more carefree. "Thanks for the loan, Mom. I'll get it back to you next month. You're the best." He never had, of course. Every piece of evidence went into my file. Patricia was building a case whether I sued or not because the documentation itself was leverage. Thursday evening they came together. I was reading when I saw them through my window, Riley and Madison walking up the sidewalk with determined faces. Madison's heels clicked on the pavement like a countdown. The buzzer rang. Not a request this time, a demand. "Ava, we're coming up!" Madison's voice sharp and commanding. "We need to settle this now." "No," I said calmly into the intercom. "Make an appointment through my attorney." "We're not leaving until you talk to us." Her voice rose. "This is ridiculous. You're being manipulated by that lawyer. We're family." I almost said it. Almost pressed that button and said I'm not invited, remember family only. But I didn't. Instead, I simply turned off the intercom. For 40 minutes, they buzzed. They called my phone. I muted it and went back to my book, a mystery novel Susan had recommended. Through the window, I watched my neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, from apartment 3B come out. She was in her 70s, a tiny Puerto Rican woman with a voice that could cut through steel. I couldn't hear what she said, but Riley's face flushed red. They left. That night the emails started. From Madison's personal account, not the joint email she shared with Riley. Long messages detailing everything they'd done for me. Visiting me regularly a lie. They came maybe once every 2 months. Including me in holidays until recently, until they decided I wasn't family anymore. Tolerating my intrusions into their life, their word, not mine. Each email was more accusatory than the last, more hostile, more calculated to make me feel guilty, to make me back down. I forwarded every single one to Patricia. "Save these," she told me over the phone. "They're documenting their own hostility. If this goes to court, this is evidence of their true feelings towards you." Friday afternoon, a registered letter arrived at my door, not from their lawyer, from Madison directly. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a typed note on expensive stationery. "This settles any perceived debts. Cash this check and drop the legal action, or we'll have no choice but to pursue harassment charges against you." I stared at that check. $5,000. Less than 3% of what they owed me. And a threat on top of it. I called Patricia immediately. "Don't cash it," she said. "That's an admission that they owe you something, but accepting it could be construed as accepting a settlement. Send it back." And the harassment threat, laughable. "You've done nothing but exercise your legal rights. They're the ones showing up at your apartment unannounced, sending threatening emails. If anyone's being harassed, it's you." Patricia paused. "Ava, are you ready for this to get ugly? Because it's about to." I thought about Riley, about the little boy who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, about the teenager who cried in my arms when his father died, about the young man who'd promised me over and over that he'd always take care of me when I got old. And then I thought about the stranger who'd stood in his doorway and told me I wasn't family. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." Sunday, exactly 2 weeks after being turned away from their dinner, I went to Mass at St. Catherine's. I'd been attending more frequently since this started finding comfort in the ritual and routine. Father Miguel, who'd known me for 15 years, noticed my distress during communion. "You seem troubled, Ava," he said afterward in the quiet of the vestibule. I told him a simplified version. He listened, his weathered face growing grave. "Honoring your father and mother isn't optional, my child," he said. "It's a commandment. What your son has done," he shook his head. "Prayer helps, but so does standing up for yourself. God doesn't ask us to be doormats." After church, I stopped by Susan's house. She made tea, the good kind with real leaves, not bags, and we sat in her garden where early spring flowers were beginning to bloom despite the November chill. "You look exhausted," she observed. "I am," I admitted. "This is harder than I thought. Part of me keeps wondering if I'm overreacting." "Are you?" Susan fixed me with that sharp look, the one that had made junior nurses quake back in our working days. "They took $250,000 from you. They cast you aside when you'd served your purpose. They're now threatening you for asking for basic accountability. Which part is an overreaction?" She was right, of course, but knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally are different things. I was fighting my own son, the boy I'd carried, raised, sacrificed for. The grief of it was suffocating. "Take a few days," Susan suggested gently. "Stop checking your email. Stop answering calls. Let Patricia handle the legal side. You need to rest or you'll break." I took her advice. For the next 4 days, I turned off my phone except for 1 hour each evening. I read books I'd been meaning to get to. I took long walks in the park near my apartment, watching the autumn leaves fall and crunch under my feet. I cooked myself proper meals instead of picking at leftovers. Chicken soup with homemade noodles the way my mother taught me. Pot roast that filled my apartment with warmth and comfort. I let myself grieve. Not just for this situation, but for the son I thought I'd raised. The son who apparently had never existed. The fantasy I'd been clinging to for 32 years. By Thursday, I felt stronger, clearer, ready for whatever came next. Because something was coming. I could feel it in my bones. Friday morning, I turned my phone back on. 17 missed calls, a dozen text messages. But these weren't angry. These were different. "Mom, please, I miss you. Can we just talk, just the two of us? I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Please call me. I know I hurt you. Please give me a chance to make it right. All from Riley, nothing from Madison. And then the last message, from an unknown number. Ava, this is Michael Parker, Madison's father. I'd like to speak with you about this situation. Please call me at your earliest convenience. Madison's father. Now they were bringing in reinforcements. I called Patricia first. They're trying a different approach, I told her. Classic manipulation tactic, she said. Threats didn't work, so now they'll try appealing to your emotions. Don't engage unless I'm present. But curiosity got the better of me. I called Michael Parker from Patricia's office with her sitting beside me, the phone on speaker. Mrs. Morrison. He said, his voice smooth and warm, practiced. Thank you for calling back. I understand there's been some family tension. That's one way to describe it. I want you to know that Madison and Riley both feel terrible about how things unfolded. These young people, they get stressed. They say things they don't mean. His voice was paternal understanding, the voice of someone used to smoothing over problems, making deals. I'm sure we can resolve this without lawyers and hurt feelings. Mr. Parker, are you aware that your daughter and my son owe me $237,000? A pause, brief but telling. Madison mentioned you'd been very generous over the years, generous gifts to help them build their life. Loans, I corrected, which they've refused to repay. Well, that's a matter of interpretation, isn't it? In families, we help each other. I've helped Madison, too. I don't keep a ledger. His tone cooled slightly. Frankly, Mrs. Morrison, this legal action is embarrassing for everyone involved. What would people think? There it was. The real concern. Appearances. Madison's professional reputation. Their standing in the community. Mr. Parker, Patricia interjected smoothly, this is Patricia Chen, Mrs. Morrison's attorney. If your daughter and son-in-law would like to settle this matter, they can present a reasonable repayment proposal through proper channels. This is exactly the problem, Michael Parker said, his voice hardening. Lawyers turning family matters into business transactions. Ava, if you continue down this path, you'll lose your son forever. Is that really worth it for money? The words were designed to hurt, and they did. But I'd had time to think, time to grieve, time to get angry. I already lost my son, I said quietly. The day he told me I wasn't family. The money is just proof of how long I'd already lost him. You're making a mistake. This call is over, Patricia said and disconnected. I sat there, hands shaking, but not from fear, from rage. They were trying to make me feel guilty for expecting basic decency, basic respect, basic repayment of what I was owed, as if wanting dignity was somehow wrong. That afternoon, an envelope arrived by courier. Inside was a handwritten letter from Riley. His handwriting not Madison's precise corporate script. Mom, I know I hurt you. I know I messed up badly. Madison and I have been talking and we want to make this right. We can't pay you back all at once. We don't have that kind of money sitting around. But what if we gave you $1,000 a month? We could start immediately. We could have dinner together again. Be a family again. I miss you so much. I miss our Sunday dinners. I miss calling you just to talk. Please, can we just go back to how things were? Love, Riley, $1,000 a month. I did the math in my head the same way I used to calculate medication dosages during night shifts. At that rate, it would take 237 months to repay me. 19 years and 9 months. I'd be 86 years old. And they wanted to go back to how things were. With me giving. Them taking. Me being grateful for whatever crumbs of affection they threw my way. I took the letter to my weekly coffee date with Susan. We'd started meeting every Tuesday at a cafe near the hospital where we used to work. The owner, Marco, always gave us free refills and the corner table by the window. Susan read Riley's letter and snorted. Actually snorted into her cappuccino. 19 years, she said, handing it back. They're betting you'll die first. Susan, I'm serious, Ava. Look at the math. They're offering you nothing and hoping you'll be grateful for crumbs. She leaned forward, her voice intense. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. But I did know. Deep down I knew. I wasn't going to accept crumbs. Tuesday morning, Patricia called with an update. Webb sent over their formal response, she said. You're going to want to sit down for this. I was already sitting, but I gripped the arm of my chair anyway. They're offering $25,000 paid over 5 years. $5,000 a year. The number was so absurd I actually laughed. a bitter hollow sound. That's barely 10%. I know, and there's more. They want you to sign a release stating that you'll never pursue additional funds, never speak publicly about this matter, and that you acknowledge all previous transfers were gifts made freely without expectation of repayment. They want me to lie. Essentially, yes. They want you to sign away your rights and your truth in exchange for 10 cents on the dollar. I closed my eyes, saw Riley's face at 5 years old, gap-toothed and trusting. Saw him at 15, broken and grieving after losing his father. Saw him at 22, graduating business school, promising me that all my sacrifices would pay off. What do you recommend we reject it completely, and we let them know we're prepared to file a lawsuit? How long will that take? To file a week, maybe 2, to actually go to trial? Patricia paused. Could be 6 months, could be a year. Depends on their strategy. A year. A year of this pain, this conflict, this daily reminder that my son had chosen money and his wife over his own mother. But what was my alternative? Accept their insulting offer and spend the rest of my life knowing I'd let them win. File it, I said. That afternoon I did something I hadn't done in months. I called my sister. Jennifer lived in Arizona with her husband Tom. We talked maybe 3 or 4 times a year, Christmas, birthdays, the occasional catch-up. We'd never been particularly close, even as kids. She was 5 years younger, and by the time she was old enough to be interesting, I was already in nursing school. But she was family. Real family, not the conditional kind Riley was offering. Ava, she sounded surprised. Is everything okay? Not really, no. I told her everything. Jennifer listened in silence, occasionally making small sounds of disbelief. 237,000, she finally said. Jesus, Ava, I knew you were helping him, but I didn't know it was that much. I didn't either. Not until I added it all up. And Madison actually told you to leave on your doorstep. Family only, she said. Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. Then, I never liked her. I know I never said anything, but I didn't. There was always something calculating about her. The way she looked at everything like she was assessing its value. Why didn't you say something? Would you have listened? Probably not. Back then, I'd been so happy that Riley had found someone, so relieved that he wouldn't be alone. I'd ignored the red flags, the way Madison always brought conversation back to money, the way she made little comments about my quaint apartment, the way she'd suggested I might want to update my wardrobe for their engagement party. I'm proud of you, Jennifer said, for standing up to them. Mom would be proud too. Our mother, the woman who'd raised us alone after our father left. The woman who'd worked 3 jobs to keep us fed and clothed. The woman who'd taught me to make apple pie and to never let anyone make me feel small. She'd died 10 years ago, leaving me that small inheritance that I'd then given to Riley. She would have been furious. Thanks, Jen. You need anything, money for the lawyer, a place to stay if things get weird. I'm okay, but thank you. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment and cried. Not from sadness this time, from relief. From the realization that I wasn't completely alone, that there were people who saw my worth, who valued me for more than my bank account. Wednesday, I started attending the support group Father Miguel had mentioned. It met in the church basement every week, a circle of 8 people dealing with difficult family situations. The facilitator was a woman named Dr. Sarah Kim, a therapist who donated her time. She was in her 40s, warm and non-judgmental with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. We have a new member today, she said, gesturing to me. Would you like to introduce yourself? I'm Ava, I said. I'm 67. My son and his wife owe me $237,000 and recently told me I'm not part of their family anymore. The words sounded surreal out loud, but no one in the circle looked shocked. They just nodded with understanding. Tom, a man about my age with calloused hands and sad eyes, spoke first. My son stole my identity, took out credit cards in my name, ruined my credit. I found out when debt collectors started calling. Maria, an elegant woman in her early 70s with silver hair. My daughter convinced me to put her name on my house. Then she sold it without telling me and put me in a nursing home. Kept all the money. Robert, late 60s, former teacher. My kids put me in a home and sold my house to pay for it. Never asked if I wanted to go. Never visited. I only got out because a social worker helped me. Each story was worse than the last, and yet everyone was surviving, fighting back, reclaiming their lives. The hardest part, Maria said, looking directly at me, is accepting that the person you loved isn't who you thought they were. My daughter isn't the little girl I raised. That person is gone if she ever existed. I had to grieve her like a death. Her words hit me like a physical blow. Because she was right. I'd been grieving Riley. Not the adult he'd become, but the child he'd been. The son I'd imagined he was. What helped you move forward? I asked, accepting that I deserved better, that my worth wasn't tied to her love or approval. Maria smiled sadly, and finding people who actually cared about me, not what I could give them. After the meeting, 3 members exchanged numbers with me. Tom invited me to a Friday game night his group held at the senior center. Robert offered to introduce me to his book club. Maria suggested we get coffee sometime. These strangers people I'd known for less than 2 hours were offering me more warmth and community than my own son had in months. I said yes to all of it. That week, I started saying yes to life again. Yes to Tom's game night, where I discovered I was surprisingly good at Scrabble. Yes to Robert's book club, where we discussed mysteries and thrillers over wine and cheese. Yes to volunteering at the hospital's retired nurses program, helping mentor young nurses the way I'd once been mentored. Yes to pottery classes at the community center that Susan had been nagging me to try for months. My first bowl was lopsided and ugly, and I loved it. My calendar filled up. My apartment, which had felt like a prison of loneliness, became a place I actually wanted to return to. A place of peace, not shame. Riley called twice more that week, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails. Mom, please. We need to talk about this like adults. I don't understand why you're being so stubborn. We're trying to make things right. Madison's father is very upset. He thinks you're trying to ruin our reputation. I forwarded the messages to Patricia and kept living my life. They're losing control of the narrative, Patricia observed during our weekly check-in. They're panicking because you're not responding the way they expected. What did they expect? For you to cave, to accept their pittance and be grateful, to prioritize being a good mother over being respected. Patricia leaned forward. You're doing something they never anticipated. You're choosing yourself. It felt strange choosing myself. I'd spent 32 years putting Riley first. Every decision filtered through the question, is this good for Riley? Will this help Riley? What does Riley need? Now I was asking, what do I need? What's good for me? What do I deserve? The answers were revolutionary. 3 weeks after the rejected offer, something strange happened. I received an email. Not from Riley or Madison or their lawyer. From an address I didn't recognize, Sarum. 47@gmail.com. The subject line read, You should know the truth about Madison. My first instinct was to delete it. It was probably spam, or worse, some kind of trick. But curiosity won. Dear Mrs. Morrison, you don't know me, but I know Madison. We were roommates and college freshmen through senior year. I saw your case mentioned in a legal blog. Apparently it's getting attention in family law circles. I don't know if this will help, but I think you should understand who Madison really is. Or maybe who she became. Madison's father left when she was 8. Just packed a bag one day and never came back. Her mother remarried within a year, a man named David who made it clear he didn't want a stepdaughter around. Madison was sent to boarding school at 12. Not a nice one. A cheap one, barely a step up from foster care. She spent holidays there. Summer breaks. Christmas. I don't think her mother visited more than twice a year. In college, Madison worked 3 jobs. She put herself through school with no help from anyone. She was brilliant driven, terrified of ever being dependent on anyone. I'm not excusing what she's done to you, but I thought you should know Madison sees generosity as debt. It terrifies her. Anyone who helps her becomes someone who has power over her, and she can't handle that. She pushed away every mentor who tried to help, burned bridges with professors who wrote her recommendations, even cut me off when I loaned her $500 during senior year. She paid it back with interest and never spoke to me again. I think with Riley's mother, she saw someone who would always have a claim on her husband. Someone who could always remind him that Madison's family abandoned her while his mother sacrificed everything. I don't know if understanding this changes anything, but I thought you deserved to know. Sarah Mitchell. I read the email 3 times. Then I sat back in my chair, my mind spinning. Madison wasn't just greedy. She was wounded, terrified, lashing out at the person who represented everything she'd never had a parent who stayed, who sacrificed, who loved unconditionally. Did it excuse her behavior? No. Did it make the cruelty hurt less? No. but it added context, nuance. It made Madison human instead of simply evil. I thought about my own mother, cold, critical, impossible to please. I'd sworn I'd be different with Riley, that I'd be warm and supportive and always there. Maybe I'd gone too far. Maybe I'd smothered him, made him dependent, prevented him from becoming truly independent. Maybe Madison and I were both damaged in different ways. She'd been abandoned. I'd been over-controlled. We'd both reacted by creating the opposite extreme, and Riley was caught in the middle, pulled between two women who'd never learned healthy balance. I forwarded the email to Patricia with a note, "Context not excuse, but thought you should see this." Her response came within an hour. "Interesting. Doesn't change the law, but it might change how we approach settlement discussions." That evening, I did something I hadn't done since this all started. I pulled out the old photo albums, the ones with Riley's baby pictures, his childhood, his teenage years. Pictures of Robert young and healthy holding our newborn son with wonder in his eyes. I'd been avoiding these albums. Too painful. But now I needed to remember. There was 5-year-old Riley covered in mud, grinning at the camera after helping me garden. Riley at 10, gap-toothed, holding up his first straight-A report card. Riley at 15, trying to look brave at his father's funeral, my arm around his shoulders. Riley at 18, graduation day, looking lost and found at the same time. Riley at 25, his wedding day. I'd walked him down the aisle since Robert wasn't there to do it. In the photo, Riley was looking at Madison with such hope, such love. Madison was looking at the camera, her smile perfect and controlled. I closed the album. That little boy was gone. The grieving teenager was gone. The hopeful young groom was gone. In their place was a 32-year-old man who'd chosen his wife's cruelty over his mother's love. I needed to grieve him. Really grieve him. Let go of who I'd hoped he'd become and accept who he actually was. Sunday I went to Mass again. Father Miguel's sermon was about forgiveness, and I wondered if he'd chosen it specifically for me. Forgiveness, he said from the pulpit, doesn't mean accepting abuse. It doesn't mean letting people continue to hurt you. It means releasing the poison of bitterness so it doesn't destroy you from the inside. After Mass, I lit a candle for Robert. Asked him wherever he was if I was doing the right thing. The candle flame flickered, but didn't answer. Monday morning, Patricia called with news. They want to meet, face to face. Mediation. Already. They're scared, Ava. Webb knows they don't have a case. They're trying to settle before we file the lawsuit. This Friday, court-mandated mediation with Judge Harrison. It's neutral territory. We present our evidence, they present their case, and the judge facilitates discussion. My stomach nodded. Do I have to see them? Yes, that's the whole point. But I'll be there. You won't be alone. Friday, 4 days away. 4 days to prepare myself to sit across a table from my son and his wife and demand they pay back what they stole. Okay, I said. I'll be ready. I wasn't ready. Thursday night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling practicing what I'd say, how I'd keep my composure, how I wouldn't cry or rage or beg. At 3 a.m. I got up and made tea, chamomile the kind my mother used to make when I couldn't sleep as a child. I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd done Riley's homework with him, where we'd eaten countless dinners, where he'd told me about his first day of kindergarten and his first heartbreak and his proposal to Madison. My phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. Mom, it's me. I'm using a friend's phone because I knew you wouldn't answer mine. Please don't go to mediation tomorrow. Please. We can work this out ourselves. Madison is willing to negotiate. Just the 3 of us. No lawyers. Please. I stared at the message. No lawyers. Just the 3 of us. Which really meant just Madison and me with Riley as her silent supporter. I typed back, see you in mediation. Then I blocked the number. Friday arrived cold and gray. I dressed carefully in my best navy suit, the one I'd bought for Robert's funeral and rarely worn since. I put on the pearl necklace Robert had given me for our 20th anniversary. Simple gold earrings. Minimal makeup. I looked at myself in the mirror. Saw a 67-year-old woman who'd worked her entire life, who'd raised a son alone, who'd sacrificed everything. A woman who deserved better than this. Patricia picked me up at 8:30. The courthouse was downtown, an imposing building of granite and glass. Remember, Patricia said as we walked in, stay calm. Don't let them see you emotional. You're here for business, not reconciliation." The mediation room was sterile and windowless. A long table, uncomfortable chairs, fluorescent lighting that made everyone look slightly ill. Judge Harrison was already there, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes. She nodded at me kindly. "Mrs. Morrison, thank you for coming." Riley and Madison arrived 10 minutes later with Marcus Webb, their lawyer. Webb was exactly what I expected, mid-40s expensive suit shark eyes that assessed and calculated. But it was Riley I couldn't stop looking at. He looked terrible. Thinner than when I'd seen him through my window. Dark circles under his eyes. His suit hung loose on his frame like he'd lost weight recently. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Madison, on the other hand, looked perfect. Hairstyled makeup, flawless designer suit that probably cost more than a month of my old nursing salary. She sat down with the confidence of someone who'd won before they started. "Let's begin," Judge Harrison said. "This is mediation, not a trial. We're here to see if we can reach an agreement both parties can live with. Mr. Webb, would you like to start?" Webb opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. "Your Honor, this is a simple case of family gift-giving being recharacterized as debt after a personal disagreement. Mrs. Morrison generously helped her son and daughter-in-law over the years. Now, following a minor family dispute, she's attempting to claim these were loans." "Generously loaned?" Patricia interrupted smoothly. "We have documentation of multiple instances where the funds were characterized as loans by the defendants themselves." "Allegedly," Webb countered. Patricia slid a folder across the table. Text messages, voicemails, email correspondence, all referring to loans, paying back, and temporary help. "Would you like me to read them aloud?" I watched Madison's face carefully. Her professional mask stayed in place, but her jaw tightened. Just slightly. Webb opened the folder, scanned the contents. His expression didn't change, but he took a longer pause before responding. "These are taken out of context. Would you like me to play the voicemail where your client explicitly says, and I quote, 'Thanks for the loan, Mom. I'll get it back to you next month.'" Patricia had her phone ready. "I have it queued up." Riley's face went pale. Madison's hand gripped his arm, her knuckles white. Judge Harrison looked at Webb. "Counselor, do you have evidence these were gifts? The nature of the family relationship?" "I'm asking for documentation, not supposition." Webb had nothing. We all knew it. "Let's discuss settlement," Judge Harrison said. "Mr. Webb, what are your clients prepared to offer?" $25,000 paid over 5 years. I didn't laugh this time. I'd prepared for this. "That's insulting," I said, my voice steady and cold. "They owe me $237,000. I have proof. They have no defense. And they're offering me table scraps." "Mrs. Morrison," Webb began, "you need to be realistic." "Realistic." I leaned forward. "Let me tell you what's realistic. You have no case. You have clients who are documented liars. And every day this drags on more evidence surfaces." I pulled out my own folder. Just last week, I had 6 people reach out with stories about Madison isolating Riley from family and friends. I have a paper trail showing systematic manipulation. So yes, let's be realistic. Your clients are going to lose, and they're going to lose badly. Madison's mask finally cracked. "You're doing this to destroy us," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm doing this to get back what you stole." "We didn't steal anything." Madison's voice rose. "You gave that money because you wanted to feel important. Because without it, you're just a lonely old woman with nothing to offer." The room went silent. Even Webb looked uncomfortable. "Madison," Riley whispered. But she was beyond listening. She stood up, hands braced on the table, and I saw something in her eyes I hadn't expected. Pain. Deep bone-deep pain. "You want to talk about manipulation?" Madison's voice cracked. "What about you showing up uninvited? Calling constantly? Inserting yourself into every decision we made? You didn't give us that money to help. You used it to buy control. To buy relevance in our lives." "That's enough," Judge Harrison said sharply. "Ms. Parker Morrison, I suggest you let your attorney speak for you." But Madison wasn't finished. "You had your turn at family. This is ours. Why can't you just let us be?" And there it was, the wound beneath the anger. Madison hadn't just been greedy. She'd been terrified. Terrified that I would always have a claim on Riley that she couldn't match. Terrified that his love for me meant less love for her. Terrified of being abandoned again like her father had abandoned her. Like her mother had abandoned her to boarding school. I looked at Riley. really looked at him. "Did you know she was going to say that?" I asked quietly. "Did you know she thinks helping you was me buying control? Mom, answer the question." Riley looked at Madison, at Webb, at the table, anywhere but at me. "She's upset," he finally said. "That's not an answer. Do you believe what she just said, that I gave you money to manipulate you?" The silence stretched. Riley's hands were shaking. His eyes were wet. "I think," he swallowed hard, "I think we both failed each other, Mom." I stared at him. That wasn't the answer I'd expected. "You made me too dependent," Riley continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "You solved every problem, fixed everything. I never learned to stand on my own. And then Madison came along and she was so independent, so strong, and I thought maybe she could teach me what you couldn't." He wiped his eyes. "But she made me too independent. Cut off from everyone who loved me, and I don't know who I am anymore without someone telling me." It was the most honest thing he'd said to me in years, and it broke my heart, because he was right. We had both failed each other. I'd loved him too much in the wrong way. Madison had loved him too little in a different wrong way. And Riley was caught in the middle, broken by both of us. "Then we have nothing more to discuss," I said, standing up. "Patricia, let's go." "Mrs. Morrison, the mediation isn't over," Judge Harrison started. "Yes, it is." I looked at Madison, then at Riley. "See you in court." Patricia and I walked out. Behind us, I heard Webb's furious whisper, Madison's sharp retort, Riley's weak protest. In the elevator, Patricia squeezed my shoulder. "That was perfect. She just gave us everything we needed." "What do you mean?" "The mediator witnessed her true character. If this goes to trial, that outburst will follow her. And Riley's admission we both failed each other, that shows he acknowledges wrongdoing." Patricia smiled grimly. "They just lost any sympathy they might have had." Outside the courthouse, spring sunshine felt like a blessing despite the cold. I breathed deeply, feeling lighter than I had in months. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we prepare for trial, and we make sure everyone knows exactly who they're dealing with." That night, I couldn't stop thinking about Riley's words. We both failed each other. He was right. I had made him dependent. I thought I was protecting him after Robert died, but I'd actually crippled him, prevented him from learning to solve his own problems, make his own mistakes, stand on his own feet. I'd done to him what my mother had done to me, loved him in a way that controlled rather than freed. And Madison, damaged by her own abandonment, had gone too far the other direction. Cut him off from everyone, isolated him, made him choose between his past and his future. 2 damaged women, 1 broken man caught between them. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and a piece of paper, started writing. Things I did wrong, made every decision for him, never let him fail, used money to stay central to his life, didn't teach independence. Things I did right, loved him unconditionally, sacrificed for his education, showed up always, tried my best with what I knew. The truth was complicated. I wasn't a perfect mother, but I also wasn't a villain, and neither was Madison really, just a scared woman trying to protect herself the only way she knew how. But that didn't make what they'd done okay. Understanding wasn't the same as excusing. They'd still taken my money, still cast me aside, still treated me like I was disposable, and they still needed to face consequences. Sunday I went to the support group again, told them about the mediation, about Madison's outburst, about Riley's admission. "That must have been hard to hear," Dr. Kim said gently. "It was, but it was also true. I did make him dependent. I thought I was being a good mother, but I was actually preventing him from growing up." Maria reached over and squeezed my hand. "We all make mistakes as parents. The question is, does that mean you deserve to be financially exploited? No. Does it mean you deserve to be cast aside? No. Then keep fighting. Not for revenge, for justice, and for yourself." Tom spoke up. "My son blamed me too. Said I'd been too trusting, too naive, that I'd made it easy for him to steal my identity. And you know what, maybe I had been too trusting, but that didn't give him the right to destroy my credit." "Exactly," Robert added. "My kids said I was too difficult, too set in my ways, that the nursing home was for my own good. Maybe I was difficult, but that didn't give them the right to sell my house without asking." Everyone had the same story. Imperfect parents who'd made mistakes, yes, but who didn't deserve to be abused, exploited, or abandoned because of those mistakes. After the meeting, Maria invited me to lunch. We went to a small Italian restaurant near the church. "I'm going to tell you something I've never told the group," she said over minestrone soup. "After my daughter sold my house after I got out of that nursing home, I wrote her a letter. I never sent it, but I needed to write it." What did it say? That I forgave her, that I understood she was damaged in her own ways, that I took responsibility for my part in our broken relationship. Maria's eyes were wet. But that I couldn't have her in my life anymore. That forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. Did it help writing it? Yes, because I realized something. I could forgive her and still protect myself. I could understand her pain and still demand justice. They're not mutually exclusive. I thought about that all afternoon. Could I forgive Riley and Madison and still take them to court? Could I acknowledge my own failures and still demand repayment? Could I understand Madison's wounds and still refuse to be her victim? The answer I realized was yes. Yes to all of it. Complexity wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. That night I wrote my own letter. To Riley. To the son I'd raised and loved and failed in my own ways. Riley, I understand now that we both made mistakes. I made you too dependent. I smothered you when I should have let you struggle. I used money to stay central to your life because I was terrified of losing you, like I lost your father. I'm sorry for that. Truly sorry. But my mistakes don't excuse yours. They don't excuse taking $237,000 and never paying it back. They don't excuse letting your wife cast me aside like trash. They don't excuse choosing comfort over courage. I love you. I always will. You're my son, and nothing changes that. But I can't be in your life anymore. Not like this. Not as someone you use and discard. Not as someone you take from, but never give to. Maybe someday when you've learned to stand on your own, when you've found your own voice, instead of echoing whoever is strongest in the room, we can try again. But until then, I have to choose myself. I forgive you. But I'm still taking you to court. Mom. I folded the letter and put it in an envelope. Addressed it. Stamped it. Then I put it in a drawer. I wasn't ready to send it yet. Maybe I never would be. But writing it had helped. It had helped me see that love and boundaries weren't opposites, that forgiveness and justice could coexist, that I could grieve my son and fight him at the same time. The week after mediation, my apartment became a war room. Patricia came over Tuesday evening with boxes of documents. We spread everything across my kitchen table, bank statements, text messages, emails, voicemails transcribed and annotated. "The trial is in 3 weeks," she said, organizing papers into neat stacks. "Judge Martinez is known for being no-nonsense. She doesn't tolerate games, and she has a reputation for protecting elder rights. Is that good for us? Very good. But we still need to be prepared for anything Webb might throw at us." Susan arrived with coffee and sandwiches. She'd become my unofficial assistant, helping me organize evidence, keeping me fed, making sure I didn't spiral into anxiety. "What's the strategy?" Susan asked, pouring coffee into mismatched mugs. Patricia pulled out a legal pad. "We establish a clear pattern. Ava provides money. Riley promises to pay it back. Riley never pays it back. Repeat for 5 years. Then we show the manipulation, Madison's comments, the social isolation, the sudden rejection." "What about Riley's admission?" I asked. "At mediation, he said we both failed each other." "That's complicated." Patricia tapped her pen against the pad. "It shows some self-awareness which could make him more sympathetic to a jury, but it also admits wrongdoing. We can use it both ways." "Will there be a jury?" "Yes, 6 people. We need them to see you as a sympathetic figure, a hard-working mother who was exploited, not a bitter old woman seeking revenge." The words stung, but I understood. Perception mattered in court. Wednesday morning, I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Mrs. Morrison, this is Dr. Ellen Vasquez. I'm a family therapist. Madison Parker Morrison asked me to reach out to you." My stomach tightened. "I'm listening." "Madison would like to participate in family therapy sessions with you and Riley to work through these issues before the trial." "No lawyers, just therapy." "That's correct. A neutral space to communicate and heal." I almost laughed. Tell Madison that if she wants to communicate, she can do it through her lawyer or in court. Those are her options. Mrs. Morrison, I understand you're hurt, but do you understand what it's like to have your son tell you you're not family, to discover you've given $250,000 to people who see you as an ATM? Dr. Vasquez was quiet for a moment. No, I don't, I'm sorry. Then please don't tell me what I should do. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Susan, who'd been pretending not to listen, came over and put her arm around my shoulders. They're trying to manipulate you into dropping the case, she said. I know. Good. Don't fall for it. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. A young woman showed up at my apartment, early 20s, nervous, clutching a folder. Mrs. Morrison, my name is Emma Harrison. I work at Riley's company. Can I talk to you? I hesitated, then let her in. Emma sat on my couch, the folder tight in her hands. I don't know if I should be here. I could get fired, but I saw the mediation listed in court records. It's public, and I thought you should know something. What? Riley's been embezzling from the company. The words hit me like cold water. What? Wow. Not a lot. Small amounts. $500 here, $1,000 there. But it's been going on for about a year. I'm in accounting. I noticed the discrepancies 3 months ago. Emma opened her folder, showed me spreadsheets, highlighted entries, patterns of missing money. I reported it to my supervisor. She told me to keep quiet, that Riley was being handled internally, but nothing's changed. He's still doing it. Why are you telling me this? Emma's eyes filled with tears. Because my grandmother raised me. My parents were addicts. She worked as a school cafeteria worker her whole life and gave me everything. When she got sick, I took care of her until she died. She wiped her eyes. I heard what Riley did to you, how he and his wife treated you, and I thought you should know what kind of person he really is. I stared at the spreadsheets. Evidence of yet another betrayal. Can I keep these? I asked. I made copies, for you and for whoever you need to show. After Emma left, I called Patricia immediately. This changes things, Patricia said after I explained. This shows a pattern of financial dishonesty beyond just you. It makes him less credible. Will we use it at trial? Maybe. Depends on how things go. But it's good insurance. Friday, I went to my pottery class. My 3rd session. My bowl was still lopsided, but I was getting better at centering the clay. The instructor Marcus, a retired art teacher in his 70s, watched me work. You're fighting it, he observed. Let the clay tell you where it wants to go. I want it to be perfect. Nothing's perfect, that's what makes it beautiful. I thought about that while my hands shaped the wet clay. About Riley. About my expectations of perfect motherhood, perfect son, perfect family. Maybe the imperfection was what made it real. Sunday, Father Miguel pulled me aside after Mass. Big week coming up, he said. Trial starts Wednesday. How are you feeling? Terrified, angry, sad, determined. I paused. All of it at once. That's normal. You're doing something brave. Father Miguel put his hand on my shoulder. Remember, seeking justice isn't the same as seeking revenge. You're standing up for yourself. That's righteous. What if I lose? Then you lose. But you'll lose knowing you fought for your dignity. That's worth something. That evening, Riley called. I was so surprised I actually answered. Mom! His voice was hoarse. Please don't do this. Please. Riley, I know what we did was wrong. I know. But taking us to court, do you know what this will do to Madison's career, to our reputation? Do you know what you did to my retirement, to my sense of worth? We'll pay you back, every penny. I promise. Just drop the lawsuit. You promised before, Riley. Many times. I have the voicemails. He was crying now, actually crying. I'm your son. Doesn't that mean anything? You're the one who told me I wasn't family. I didn't mean it. Madison was upset her parents were there. I didn't know what to say. You knew exactly what to say. You said nothing. You chose her over me. Because I love her. The words hung in the air between us. I love her mom. I know she's difficult. I know she treated you badly. But I love her. And I don't know how to choose between you. My heart broke a little. Because I heard it now, the truth beneath the words. Riley wasn't malicious. He was weak, caught between two strong women, unable to stand on his own. Then don't choose, I said quietly. Stand up for what's right. Admit what you did. Take responsibility. Pay back the money. That's not choosing sides. That's being an adult. I can't. Webb says if we admit the loans in court, we're opening ourselves up to fraud charges. Then you have a problem. Mom, I'll see you in court, Riley. I hung up. And this time, I didn't cry. Wednesday morning arrived cold and clear. I dressed in my navy suit again. The pearls, simple makeup. Susan drove me to the courthouse. You've got this, she said, squeezing my hand. I hope so. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, a judge's bench, tables for the lawyers, rows of seats for observers. Maria from my support group was there. Tom and Robert, too. Jennifer had flown in from Arizona. Uncle Frank Robert's best friend sat in the back row giving me a thumbs up. I had people, real people who cared about me, not what I could give them. Riley and Madison sat at their table with Webb. Madison looked perfect as always. Riley looked like he hadn't slept in days. Judge Martinez entered, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes behind reading glasses. All rise. The trial began. Day 1 documentation. Patricia stood and addressed the court. Her voice was clear, professional, devastating. Your Honor, this is a simple case of breach of contract. Ava Morrison, a retired nurse and widow, provided $237,000 to her son Riley Morrison and his wife Madison Parker Morrison over a 5-year period. These funds were characterized as loans by the defendants themselves. They have refused to repay. We're here to seek justice. She presented the evidence methodically. Each bank transfer projected on a screen. Each text message read aloud. Each voicemail played for the courtroom. The jury, 3 men, 3 women ranging from their 30s to their 60s, listened intently. One woman about my age with kind eyes shook her head slightly when the total amount appeared on screen, $237,000. Webb tried to argue context. Family dynamics, the spirit of giving. Judge Martinez cut him off. Counselor, do you have documentation showing these were gifts? The relationship itself. Documentation, Mr. Webb, not narrative. He had nothing. By the end of the first day, Patricia had established the facts beyond dispute. Money was given. Promises were made. Money was not returned. Day 2, witnesses. Patricia called Uncle Frank first. How long have you known the Morrison family? Patricia asked. 30 years. I was Robert's best friend. When he died, I promised to look out for Ava and Riley. Did you notice any changes in Riley's behavior after he married Madison? Objection. Webb stood. Relevance. Goes to pattern of behavior, Your Honor, Patricia countered. I'll allow it. Answer the question, Mr. Franklin. Uncle Frank adjusted his glasses. Riley stopped coming around. He used to visit me once a month. We'd have dinner talk about his dad. After Madison, those visits stopped. When I called, Madison usually answered, said Riley was busy. Did you ever discuss Mrs. Morrison's financial support with Riley? Once, about 2 years ago, I asked if he was paying Ava back. He looked uncomfortable and said Madison was handling their finances. I pushed and he got defensive, said his mother liked helping them. Next, Susan took the stand. She described our friendship, our years working together, and what I'd told her after being turned away from Sunday dinner. She was devastated, Susan said. Not just hurt, destroyed. She kept saying, I'm not family, over and over. When did you first become concerned about financial exploitation? When she told me the amount. $237,000. That's not helping family. That's being used. Tom from the support group testified about patterns of elder financial abuse. His credentials as a former accountant gave weight to his words. Guilt tripping, social isolation, increasing financial demands. These are classic signs, he said. The victim often doesn't realize what's happening until they step back and see the pattern. The jury was paying attention, taking notes. The kind-eyed woman looked at me with sympathy. Then Patricia called me. I walked to the stand on shaking legs, placed my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Mrs. Morrison, why did you give your son this money? Patricia asked gently. Because he asked. because he was my son, because I wanted to help him build a good life. Did you expect repayment? Yes, he promised, multiple times. Did you ever refuse his requests for money? No, my voice cracked slightly. I couldn't. He was my only child. After my husband died, it was just the two of us. I would have done anything for him. When did you realize something was wrong? I told them about the Sunday dinner, about standing on the doorstep with the apple pie, about Madison's cold voice, family only, about Riley's silence. Several jurors looked at Riley. He was staring at his hands. How did that make you feel? Like I'd lost my son, like 32 years of love meant nothing. Webb cross-examined aggressively. Isn't it true you used money to control your son's life? No. You paid for everything. Housing, cars, education. Doesn't that create dependence? I created opportunity. He created dependence by never standing on his own. You're bitter he married someone you didn't approve of. I'm devastated he became someone who could throw away his mother like garbage. Webb tried to shake me, asking the same questions different ways, but I'd faced worse. Years of demanding doctors, hostile families, impossible situations. A corporate lawyer was nothing. Mrs. Morrison, Webb said, changing tactics, isn't it true you sometimes made decisions for Riley without consulting him, chose his activities as a child, managed his schedule? I paused, remembered what Riley had said at mediation. You made me too dependent. Yes, I said quietly. After his father died, I was terrified of losing him too, so I tried to protect him from everything. I see now that I made mistakes. I didn't teach him independence the way I should have. The admission surprised Webb. He hadn't expected honesty. But I continued. My mistakes as a mother don't excuse theft. They don't excuse cruelty. I wasn't a perfect mother, but I didn't deserve this. The kind-eyed juror nodded slightly. Webb put Madison on the stand. It was a risk, and he knew it. Ms. Parker Morrison, can you describe your relationship with the plaintiff? Ava was always involved in our lives, our decisions, our home. Madison's voice was controlled, professional. At first, I appreciated her generosity, but it came with strings, expectations. What kind of expectations? That we'd spend every Sunday with her, that we'd call her every day, that we'd consult her on major decisions. It felt suffocating. Patricia's cross-examination was surgical. Ms. Parker Morrison, you're a corporate lawyer, correct? Yes. So you understand contracts, legal obligations, documentation. Of course. Then why didn't you document these alleged gifts in writing? Get a signed statement from Mrs. Morrison that these funds were gifts with no expectation of repayment. Madison hesitated. It was family. We trusted each other. Did you, because you've alleged that Mrs. Morrison used this money to manipulate and control? If you truly believed that, why did you keep accepting it? We needed help. For 5 years, $237,000 worth of help. Patricia pulled out a document. According to your own financial disclosures, you and Riley have a combined income of $285,000 per year. Why did you need a retired nurse's money? We had expenses, a $4,800 vacation to Turks and Caicos, a $12,000 hot tub installation, $8,000 in designer furniture. Patricia listed each one. Were these necessities? Madison's face flushed. We deserve to enjoy our lives. On someone else's retirement savings. She gave it willingly. Did she? Patricia played the voicemail. Riley's voice filled the courtroom. Thanks for the loan, Mom. I'll get it back to you next month. That's your husband explicitly calling it a loan. Were you present when he made this promise? I don't remember. You don't remember your husband borrowing $15,000. Webb objected, but the damage was done. Then came the moment that changed everything. Twist 5. Patricia called an unexpected witness, Emma Harrison. Webb stood immediately. Objection. This witness wasn't disclosed. She came forward yesterday, Your Honor. New evidence of pattern of behavior. Judge Martinez frowned. Approach. The lawyers huddled at the bench. Whispered arguments. Finally, the judge nodded. I'll allow it, but keep it brief, Ms. Chen. Emma took the stand, nervous but determined. Ms. Harrison, what is your relationship to the defendant? I work in accounting at his company, Morrison and Associates. And you came forward with information? Yes. Riley Morrison has been embezzling from the company, small amounts over the past year. I have documentation." The courtroom erupted. Madison went white. Riley looked like he might be sick. Webb was on his feet. "Your Honor, this is outrageous." "It goes to credibility, Your Honor," Patricia said calmly. "Shows a pattern of financial dishonesty." Judge Martinez banged her gavel. "I'll allow it. Continue, Ms. Chen." Emma presented her spreadsheets. The missing money. The pattern. By the time she finished, the jury was looking at Riley with disgust. Webb called Riley to the stand. A desperate move. "Mr. Morrison, tell us about your relationship with your mother." Riley's voice was quiet. "She was everything after Dad died. She worked so hard to give me a good life. I know she sacrificed. And the money she gave you, I thought it was just her helping. I didn't realize she was keeping track." Patricia's cross was devastating. "Mr. Morrison, did you promise to pay your mother back? Sometimes, in the moment. Yes or no?" "Yes." "Did you pay her back?" "No." "Why not?" Riley looked at Madison, at Webb, back at me. "Because I thought she'd always be there. I thought I had time." "Did you embezzle from your company?" "That's not relevant," Webb started. "Answer the question," Judge Martinez ordered. Riley's shoulders slumped. "Yes, small amounts. I was going to pay it back. Just like you were going to pay your mother back." Silence. "Your witness showed a pattern, Mr. Morrison. You borrow money, promise to repay, never do, whether it's from your mother or your employer. Isn't that theft?" "I never meant intent doesn't change facts. You took $237,000 from your mother. You took money from your company. You're a thief." "Objection," Webb shouted. "Sustained. Jury will disregard that characterization." But the damage was done. The jury had heard it, believed it. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes. When they returned, my heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. The forewoman, the kind-eyed woman, stood. "In the matter of Morrison versus Morrison, we find in favor of the plaintiff, Ava Morrison." Relief flooded through me. "The defendants are ordered to repay $237,000 plus interest, totaling $256,420. Additionally, we award the plaintiff $50,000 in emotional distress damages and $35,000 in legal fees. $341,420. I watched Riley's face crumble. Madison sat rigid in shock, but Judge Martinez wasn't finished. "I'm also ordering immediate wage garnishment. 25% of both defendants' incomes until this debt is satisfied. Additionally, a lien will be placed on all property currently owned by the defendants." "Your Honor," Webb protested, "that's excessive." "What's excessive, counselor, is stealing from your mother and then trying to justify it in my courtroom." Judge Martinez looked at Riley and Madison with open contempt. "You will pay every penny. And if you attempt to hide assets, transfer property, or otherwise evade this judgment, I will hold you in contempt. Am I clear?" "Yes, Your Honor," Webb said weakly. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. The case had gotten attention: elder abuse, family betrayal, $250,000. Patricia had prepared a statement for me. "This case was never about money," I said, reading carefully. "It was about dignity, respect, and holding people accountable for their actions. I hope this sends a message that elderly parents are not ATM machines for their children's lifestyle choices." The cameras flashed. Questions shouted. Patricia guided me to Susan's car. "You did it," Susan said, hugging me. "I did, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty." That night the story went viral. Grandmother wins $341,000 from son who banned her from family dinner. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Media requests, interview offers, messages of support from strangers around the world. But the message I couldn't stop reading was from Uncle Frank. "Robert would be proud of you, Maggie. You didn't just win a case. You won your dignity back." I slept that night better than I had in months. A week later, a letter arrived. Handwritten. Riley's writing. "Mom, you were right about everything. I was weak. I am weak. Madison is filing for divorce. She can't handle the financial strain, the embarrassment, the judgment lien on our house. She's moving back in with her parents. I'm losing everything. The house, the car, my reputation, maybe my job too after the embezzlement came out. But I already lost the most important thing. You. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know you were a good mother. The best mother. You gave me everything and I threw it away. I was a bad son, a weak man. I let Madison manipulate me because it was easier than standing up to her. I let her isolate me from you because I was too cowardly to choose. You asked me at mediation if I believed you manipulated me with money. The truth is, I don't know. Maybe you did sometimes. Maybe you held on too tight. But that doesn't excuse what I did. What we did. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm starting therapy. Trying to figure out who I am without someone telling me. It's hard. Scary. Madison left me. My friends don't return my calls. My company is deciding whether to press charges or let me resign quietly. All I have left is the hope that someday, maybe years from now, you might forgive me. I love you, Mom. Riley P.S. No return address because I don't want you to feel obligated to respond. This isn't manipulation, just truth. I read the letter 100 times, cried until I had no tears left. Then I did something I'd been avoiding. I wrote back, Riley, I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean going back to how things were. It means I'm releasing the poison of bitterness so it doesn't destroy me. You're right that I held on too tight sometimes. After your father died, I was terrified of losing you too. I tried to protect you from everything, and in doing so I prevented you from learning to protect yourself. I made you dependent. That was my failure. But you're an adult now. You made choices. You chose Madison's cruelty over basic decency. You chose comfort over courage. Those were your failures. We both have work to do. I hope you find yourself in therapy. I hope you become the man your father would be proud of. The man I raised you to be. But I can't be part of that journey. Not now. Maybe not ever. This isn't punishment. It's self-preservation. I'm building a new life. I have friends who value me. Purpose that fulfills me. Peace that I haven't felt in years. There's a Riley-shaped hole in that life. There always will be. But I've learned to live with it. Maybe someday, if you truly change, if you truly grow, we can try again. Not as mother and dependent son, but as two adults who respect each other. Until then, I wish you well. I love you. I always will. Mom, I sealed the letter, stamped it, mailed it, and felt lighter. My life looked different now. I was leading the support group at church, 8 people who'd been through similar betrayals, finding healing together. I joined Robert's book club permanently, started dating Thomas, the financial advisor. Nothing serious, just companionship and conversation. I'd finished my pottery class and started painting. My apartment walls were covered with amateur art lopsided bowls, abstract canvases, proof that I was creating instead of just surviving. The money started coming in. 25% of Riley's salary, 25% of Madison's. It would take years, but I'd get it back. I heard through Uncle Frank that Riley and Madison had divorced, that Riley was living in a small apartment working an entry-level job after resigning from his company, that he was in therapy twice a week, that he'd sent me flowers on my birthday. I'd received them, didn't respond. Jennifer visited from Arizona. We spent a week together reconnecting as sisters. She'd never been good at emotions, but she tried. You seem happy, she observed one evening over wine. I am, mostly. But there's still a hole where Riley should be. Maybe that's okay. Maybe some holes don't get filled. We just learn to walk around them. One Sunday I visited Robert's grave. I did this occasionally, now talking to him, updating him on life. I won, Robert, I said, sitting on the grass beside his headstone. But it doesn't feel like winning. Our boy is broken. Maybe he always was. Maybe I broke him by loving him too much. Maybe Madison broke him by loving him too little. Maybe he broke himself. The wind rustled through the cemetery trees. I learned something, though. Generosity without boundaries isn't love. But boundaries without grace isn't love either. I chose myself. It was necessary. But there's a cost. There's always a cost. I traced his name on the headstone. Robert James Morrison, beloved husband and father. I have a good life now. Friends who care. Purpose. Even Thomas, you'd like him. He's kind, patient. Nothing like you, but that's okay. I stood up, brushing grass from my pants. But there's a Riley-shaped hole that nothing fills, and I've made peace with that. Some things don't heal, they just scar over, and scars are proof we survived. Walking back to my car, I passed a young mother with her son, maybe 7 years old, gap-toothed and energetic. "Mom, I love you," he said, throwing his arms around her waist. "I love you too, sweetie," she replied, ruffling his hair. I smiled. Small, sad, knowing. Love isn't enough, I thought, but it's still worth everything. I got in my car, drove home to my apartment, to my friends, to my pottery and painting and book club, to Thomas who was making dinner, to my new life. It wasn't the life I'd planned, it wasn't the life I'd wanted, but it was mine, chosen, protected, dignified, and that was enough.